Hey guys, it's Barrett with the Camping Camper. So today we're going to go over the Gasstop. It's an emergency shutoff for your propane. Keeps you a little safer going down the road. So I use it with my propane turned on. That's up to you. We have a whole video about the safety of this. I'll link that up there. But I'm going to tell you that one of the things that this can be used for is finding small leaks apparently. I'm getting ready to have a video out about doing a pressure test on the RV. So we're actually going to do a real pressure test with like a manometer. But Gasstop did sponsor some of these for me, and I wanted to give them a special shout out on this one. And so what we're going to do is we're going to test this system out. So we're going to install the system. Now what we do is we go over to both of our propane tanks. You're going to need one for each tank. It just screws onto the propane tank, and then the hose screws on here. Now there's one additional step whenever you install this, and you have to prime this. So you have to push it down 5 to 6 times, and then you'll see that needle move. And apparently we're going to do the pressure test. Then what you do then is you turn the propane tank off and you leave it 10 minutes, and then you go back and see if this needle moved at all. So if it moved, then that means that because this is primed inside of this system and it's not getting any new gas, then it's detecting that it's got lower pressure from the line. So that would be a bad deal and you'd have a leak somewhere. So this is very similar to a drop down test with a manometer, but you know, these also have a safety feature built in. And the needle on there, I mean, it's obviously going to be less accurate. And we're going to, like I say, do the full manometer test coming up soon. But let's get these things on here and then we'll do this pressure test. So the first step is to screw the propane line onto the Gasstop, and then you'll screw the Gasstop onto the propane tank. Now I will say you gotta make sure this is seated right because it wasn't tightening down for me, but it's got a little bit less clearance inside, I think, than like the normal propane valves. And so you just gotta make sure that you're having a good connection there, and then it tightens down for you. Next thing we do is we're going to turn this gas on. You always turn your propane line on slow because your tank has a built-in valve that's kind of similar to this, and if it senses a lot of propane going out of it, it'll turn off. So we're going to turn the propane line on real slow, and then we got to prime this system. So in order to prime this, we got to push this inward 5 or 6 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I do think that this is already getting pressure from the other side as well, so because that tank's turned on. So now what we're going to do a pressure test is we're going to turn this tank off, and we're going to go turn our other tank off, and we're going to wait 10 minutes to see if these needles move. I'm going to go ahead and take a picture of these so I know exactly where they are. And this does say high, which makes me wonder if maybe I have a problem with my regulator. This probably isn't the most specific thing here. And so I am going to do a manometer test, so that'll help me know if the pressure is actually high. But for a leak, we just want to know that if it's relatively changed after turning the propane off versus where it actually started. So take a picture of that now. I'm also turning off the second line here. So both tanks are off. Okay, so while that pressure test is running, we got 10 minutes to spare. So we're going to talk to you a minute about the difference between that Gasstop and just a regular gauge that you get to screw onto your propane tank. Now I think those regular gauges are trash. I did use them for a little while. They are not helpful at all. They're not helpful for one reason, and that's because if there's gas in the tank, it's going to have pressure and it's going to show you have gas. And if there's not, then it's not going to show any pressure and you're not going to have any gas. Well, guess what? If you're out of gas, you're going to know it because nothing's working. And said, I am going to keep the Gasstop on the RV because I see the safety features involved with it, and I have some hopes for this pressure test. Now, like I say, I am going to do an actual pressure test with a manometer here in just a minute, but you won't see this for a few weeks because that's the way YouTube works. But I'm going to tell you how reliable this Gasstop version is versus the other. You know, with the manometer, it was about $40 off of Amazon. These, I actually put the current price off of Amazon up here. There also will be links down in the description, by the way. But you have the safety features built in. And like I say, it may not be an ironclad test, but it's definitely one step in the right direction to know if you have a propane leak. So I won't argue with that at all. And it'll keep you safe. If you have a blowout and it rips out your propane line, it'll cut that gas off in like less than a second. So I'm really happy with this product. Now let's see how this timer works out and see what these gauges look like. All right, so that timer's going off and we're going to go look and see what these gauges did. Now, I want to say that I did take pictures of both sides, and I actually watched some videos of some drop tests by a few different people before I did this, because like I say, I'm getting ready to do that. And one of the things that they did, the channel is called RV Repair Woman, and they said take a picture of the manometer before and after your test, and that way you can see exactly if there's any movement in the needle. And after thinking about that for a minute, I think that makes a lot of sense, because yeah, you know, you might have a pretty good memory, but if that moves like 1 degree, are you really going to notice that much? If you have a picture you can put side by side and just put on your phone and just kind of swipe it back and forth, you can be pretty certain that it hadn't moved, not a bit. So that's what we're going to put to the test right now. All right, so I don't see any movement in the gauges on either side, so I'm gonna turn the gas back on.